I don't care what anyone says, Maxwell snapped, voice sharp as glass. The next woman who walks through that door? I'm marrying her. Laughter echoed around the room, but he wasn't joking. Not even a little. Seconds later, the door creaked open, and in stepped Jemima. She wasn't flawless, far from it. Soft cheeks flushed from the cold, clothes a little loose, hair tucked behind her ears. Not the kind of woman people would bet on. Maxwell's chest tightened. His mouth went dry. He swallowed every cocky word he planned to say, because in that moment all he saw was her. Jemima caught his gaze, froze for a heartbeat, then smiled shyly. The room's chatter died, and just like that, Maxwell felt something he hadn't in years, something real. Not power, not money, something soft, something terrifying, something like love. Jemima had no idea what was happening around her. She wasn't thinking about billionaires or marriage declarations. She'd just gotten paid. Finally, the month-end salary she'd been waiting for, and decided to treat herself to something nice at that fancy restaurant. Nothing more. So when she walked in, the laughter started. Not quiet whispers, but loud, obvious chuckles. She felt their eyes on her, the way some of the men smirked. The women exchanged glances behind raised menus. They were laughing at her soft curves, her round face, the way her dress didn't fit the mold of what they called perfect. Jemima's smile faltered, confusion and hurt flashing across her face. But she kept walking, head held high, pretending she didn't hear. Only Maxwell didn't look away. His eyes stayed locked on her as the laughter grew louder, and Jemima's countenance shifted. Uncertainty, embarrassment, the sting of ridicule clear as day. Without a word, Maxwell stood. The room fell silent. He walked over, slow but deliberate, and reached out to take Jemima's hand. Every head turned. No one could believe what happened next. Maxwell smiled, the kind of smile that said, I see you. You're more than what they think. And then, softly but firmly, he said, Would you like to sit with me? Jemima's heart pounded as she followed Maxwell through the restaurant, the weight of every gaze pressing down on her like a storm. She didn't know what to expect, but she knew she had to try to hold herself together. Maxwell led her to a quiet corner table, away from the sneers and whispers, and gestured for her to sit. As Jemima lowered herself onto the chair, she felt his eyes on her. Not with hunger or shallow desire, but with something deeper. He admired her. Not her shape, not her dress, not even her smile. He admired her. Her courage to walk in despite it all, her quiet strength. Maxwell's gaze was gentle but intense, the kind that made Jemima's chest ache and cheeks flush. But the moment shattered when a voice pierced through the tense silence. Max, you don't have to prove anything. A man sneered from the crowd of rich attendees. We'd let you trash her and move on to someone better. Laughter erupted, sharp and mocking. The slim, curvy women by the bar doubled over, clutching their pearls, exchanging cruel giggles and knowing looks. Jemima's throat tightened, tears welling up before she even realized it. She stood, her movements shaky but determined. I'm sorry, she whispered, voice breaking as she tried to escape the unbearable scene. But fate wasn't on her side that night. Her foot caught in the long hem of her gown. Before she could stop it, Jemima stumbled, falling hard onto the marble floor. The room exploded into uncontrollable laughter. Loud, cruel, merciless. Cameras flashed. Some guests recorded the moment. Others just laughed wildly, relishing the spectacle. Maxwell didn't hesitate. He stripped off his expensive suit jacket, the rich fabric falling around Jemima like a shield. Kneeling beside her, he wrapped the jacket around her trembling shoulders and pulled her into a protective embrace. His voice was low, steady, a lifeline in the chaos. Don't listen to them. You're nothing like what they say. Gently, he helped her to her feet, his hand firm and reassuring. Without looking back, Maxwell led Jemima out of the restaurant, the laughter still ringing in the air behind them. Outside, under the cool night sky, Jemima's tears finally spilled freely. But for the first time in a long while, she felt safe. Because someone unexpected was fighting for her. Outside, under the pale glow of streetlights, Jemima suddenly pulled herself free from Maxwell's grip. Her body shook as tears streamed down her cheeks, hot and relentless. "Explain," she demanded, voice cracking. "Explain what that nonsense was inside the restaurant." Maxwell blinked, caught off guard by the raw fury. She pushed him hard, taking a shaky breath. "If you wanted to do some girl gamble, then why did you even involve me?" His heart ached at her words, but he spoke calmly, carefully. "I wasn't expecting anyone, Jemima. Honestly." Her fists clenched tighter, her breath hitching. "But when you walked in, something shifted. The air changed. Something big. Something really big. You." Before he could finish, a sharp slap landed across his cheek. "Don't mock me," she yelled, eyes blazing. Jemima spun on her heel and hailed a cab without another word. Maxwell reached out to stop her, but the car was already pulling away. She was gone. He stood alone in the cold night, heart pounding and breath visible in the chilly air. After a long moment, he turned back inside. Near the doorway, something caught his eye, a purse lying abandoned on the ground. He picked it up, running his palm over the worn leather. Inside, he found her ID card and ATM card, a small photo of a man and a woman smiling together, and some dollar bills. Suddenly it hit him. She didn't leave with money. Jemima might be stranded, and she might need him more than he ever imagined. Maxwell searched the dimly lit streets, heart hammering with every step. The cold bit through his expensive shoes, but he barely noticed. Then, under the faint glow of a flickering street lamp, he saw her. Jemima, crouched on the cold pavement, her head buried deep in her knees, arms wrapped tightly around herself. She looked so small, so vulnerable, the world's weight pressing down on her slender shoulders. He approached slowly, kneeling a few feet away, voice low and steady. "Jemima, I'm so sorry." She didn't look up. Instead, she pushed against his outstretched hand, her movements desperate, like trying to hold back a flood. "I'm not the one you should be apologizing to," she whispered, her voice cracked and raw. But Maxwell didn't move. "I'm not leaving," he said firmly. "Not until you're okay." Minutes passed in silence, the distant hum of the city filling the space between them. Gently, Maxwell slipped off his suit jacket and wrapped it around her shivering shoulders. She stiffened but didn't pull away. "I didn't want you to get hurt because of me," she murmured. His hand found hers. Her fingers trembled violently in his palm. God, it broke him, feeling her pain like it was his own. Slowly, she lifted her head, tears glistening in her eyes, and finally met his gaze. For the first time, the walls around her seemed to crack. And in that fragile moment, something unspoken passed between them. Something neither was ready to name, but both felt. Hope. Maxwell kept glancing at Jemima as he drove her through the quiet streets. The city lights blurred past, but his eyes never left her wrapped in his suit jacket, shoulders still trembling from the cold and everything she'd been through. The silence between them was comfortable but heavy. Neither knew what to say. When they finally reached her place, a small, weathered apartment building tucked between towering complexes, Maxwell parked and watched her climb out. She moved slowly, head bowed, hands clutching the jacket tighter around her. He gave a small wave. "Good night, Jemima." She didn't answer, just turned and walked through the worn wooden door, disappearing inside. Maxwell stayed there for a moment, heart pounding, unwilling to leave but unsure if he should stay. Morning came with a soft glow through the city's haze. Before the sun had fully risen, Maxwell found himself walking up the cracked steps of Jemima's building. He paused outside her door, hesitated, then gently knocked. No answer at first. Then the door creaked open just enough to reveal her cautious eyes. She looked surprised to see him but didn't say a word. "I wanted to make sure you're okay," he said simply. Her lips trembled, and for the first time Maxwell saw the flicker of something more, trust, maybe even a little hope. Jemima shifted uneasily inside the doorway, avoiding Maxwell's gaze. I I sent your jacket to the laundry service, she said quietly, still not looking at him. I'll tell them to deliver it to your office later, maybe around noon. You should probably just give them your office address. It'll be better that way. Maxwell's eyes stayed fixed on the floor, voice soft. I didn't expect you to think I came just for the jacket. Slowly, with all the gentleness he could muster, Maxwell lifted his hand and cupped Jemima's cheek, turning her face up toward his. I'm sorry, he whispered again. For everything. Her eyes blinked, reflecting a quiet storm of emotions, but just as softly, she pulled away from his hand, stepping back. It's fine, she said, voice strained but steady. Please, I'd really appreciate it if you stopped here already. I think I've been embarrassed enough. Maxwell's heart tightened. That's not why I'm here, he said gently, voice calm but earnest. For a long moment, the two of them just stood there, the air thick with everything unspoken. Jemima finally exhaled, breaking the silence. I'm not used to this. This? Maxwell asked. People treating me like I'm more than just someone to laugh at. Like I matter. He smiled, the kind of smile that reached his eyes. You matter, he said simply. More than you know. They talked quietly then, like two strangers sharing stories for the first time. No pretenses, no judgments. She told him about small joys. The scent of rain, the taste of good coffee, the way her mother's cooking felt like home. He told her about fleeting moments of loneliness, the weight of expectations, the strange peace he found in unexpected encounters. Though their lives were worlds apart, in that moment they found common ground. And though Maxwell still thought of himself as just a stranger, Jemima's laugh, soft, genuine, started to chip away at his walls. Because sometimes, even strangers can change everything. Maxwell walked away from Jemima's small apartment with an unfamiliar weight pressing on his chest. A mixture of curiosity, admiration, and something deeper he wasn't ready to name. He found himself smiling quietly to himself, the way people do when a sudden thought keeps sneaking into their mind. Jemima, he whispered under his breath. But somehow the nickname that felt right was simpler, warmer, Jem. She hadn't let him into her world, not really. Her guard was still up, her eyes cautious every time their paths crossed. She treated him like a familiar stranger, someone she knew but kept carefully at arm's length. And maybe that was all she could manage right now. But Maxwell? He was beginning to feel something else. Every time he thought of her soft smile hiding pain, the way she carried herself despite the world's harshness, he felt his chest tighten with an ache that wasn't loneliness anymore. He found himself replaying moments in his mind. The way her hands trembled when she held his jacket, the quiet strength in her voice when she told him to stop apologizing, the vulnerability she tried to hide behind a brave face. He wondered about the stories behind those eyes, the battles fought in silence. Jemima didn't owe him anything. She hadn't invited him in. But Maxwell wanted to be there. Not to fix her, not to change her, but just to be a steady presence in a life that had been anything but gentle. The night air was cool, but inside, his heart burned with a new kind of fire. A hope that maybe, just maybe, this strange encounter could grow into something real. Something worth fighting for. Maxwell couldn't deny it anymore. He was falling for Jemima. Not the kind of fleeting attraction fueled by lust or curiosity. This was something deeper, softer, more real. Every time he thought about her, it was her laughter that echoed in his mind. Her quiet strength when she pushed him away but didn't quite let go. The way her eyes told stories she wouldn't say aloud. But Jemima, she was still walking on eggshells around him. Her smiles were cautious, her words measured. Like every moment spent near him was a delicate dance, where one wrong step might shatter the fragile trust she was building. She didn't know what to make of him, or maybe she did and was terrified of what it might mean. Maxwell wanted to tell her it was okay to let down her walls, but he knew better. Healing wasn't a race. It was a journey, and for now he'd be patient. He'd be the quiet strength she didn't have to see, until she was ready to believe it herself. Maxwell sat behind his massive oak desk, the city skyline stretching beyond the glass walls of his office. But his thoughts weren't on contracts or meetings, they were on Jemima. Her laugh, the way she tucked her hair behind her ear when she was nervous, the fragile strength she carried beneath her guarded eyes. He didn't want to overwhelm her, didn't want to rush or scare her away. So instead, he chose quiet gestures, small ripples of kindness in her day. That afternoon, a bouquet of soft pink roses arrived at her door, then a box of rich chocolates, carefully selected, with a note that simply read, "Thinking of you." And one morning, a plush teddy bear, gentle and unassuming, showed up on her doorstep. Maxwell didn't send these to make a show of himself. He wasn't acting out some grand romantic fantasy. He was just trying to be normal, to let Jemima know without words that she was in his thoughts, that she mattered, that she was not alone. Maxwell was in his sleek, modern kitchen, the early morning sun spilling through the windows as he prepared coffee. He wasn't supposed to be thinking about anything but his day ahead. But then, out of nowhere, Jemima's face appeared in his mind. The curve of her smile, the softness in her eyes. His hand instinctively clutched his chest as a warm smile spread across his lips. It was an off day for him, no meetings, no deadlines. Without overthinking, he pulled out his phone and typed, "Hey Jem, are you home?" Seconds later, her reply came, "No." He tapped again, "Send me your location." Moments later, a pin dropped on his screen. A small park near the city center. Curious and quietly thrilled, Maxwell made his way there. He found her sitting on a weathered bench, a violin resting gently in her hands. She played softly, the notes weaving through the gentle afternoon breeze like a whispered secret. Maxwell stood behind her, silent and still, watching her without her noticing. Minutes passed, then an hour. He wasn't bored. He wasn't impatient. He just watched. Then, from the pocket of her coat, Jemima pulled out a small, worn photo, the same one Maxwell had seen in her purse that night at the restaurant. She kissed it gently and stared, lost in memories only she could see. Unable to hold back any longer, Maxwell stepped forward, his fingers lightly brushing her shoulders. She startled but didn't pull away. They talked quietly, about work, about the little moments that made life bearable. Then, hesitantly, Jemima asked, "Do you want to know who's in the photo?" Maxwell nodded, his heart steady but expectant. She exhaled, eyes misting with sadness. "That's my late husband." Her voice cracked, but she continued. "He had a terminal illness. I wanted to break off our engagement because I didn't want to spend what little time he had in pain. But he insisted we marry," she whispered. The weight of her story settled between them, deep and raw. Maxwell reached for her hand. "I'm here," he said softly. And for once, Jemima let herself believe someone might stay. The soft hum of the park wrapped around them as Maxwell and Jemima sat side by side on the weathered bench. Maxwell glanced at her, the afternoon light casting shadows across his face. "I've never fallen in love," he said quietly, voice tinged with something vulnerable. "Not because I didn't want to," he added, a shy smile tugging at his lips, "but because I never felt anything special for anyone, not until I met someone." Jemima's eyes softened, watching him carefully. She nudged him gently with her elbow, a playful glint in her gaze. "Have you told this someone how you feel?" Maxwell's smile faded into a bashful grin. "Not yet. I want to wait." "Wait," Jemima echoed, raising an eyebrow. He shrugged lightly. "I'm not in a rush." Jemima's smile turned wistful. "Waiting too long," she said softly, "isn't always the best idea. Sometimes, if you wait too long to confess, you might be too late. The person might have fallen for someone else." Their eyes met, a quiet understanding passing between them. For all the walls they both carried, this moment felt honest, raw, and real. Maybe, just maybe, it was the beginning of something neither dared to name yet. Weeks slipped by, and Jemima felt a quiet shift inside her. The harsh echoes of that restaurant night, the laughter, the shame, began to fade, like distant thunder after a storm. She had stopped questioning God about why she wasn't perfect. Instead, She chose gratitude. Gratitude for breath, for small joys, for moments of peace. Even if some still whispered behind her back about being chubby. Her relationship with Maxwell had blossomed into something rare and beautiful. Real friendship. For Jemima, it was healing. For Maxwell, it was something deeper than he'd felt in years. Sometimes, he'd call her up to his penthouse, inviting her over for what he jokingly called dish tasting. "Why do you need me to taste your cooking?" she'd ask, raising an eyebrow. Maxwell would grin. "I'm learning how to not just be a husband to my future wife, but also a supportive bestie." Jemima would laugh, really laugh, agreeing to come over, teasing him about his cooking skills. She'd sample his dishes, telling him what was missing, what was too much. And sometimes, she'd joke, "Honestly, your future wife will probably order takeout instead of eating all this." Her laughter would fill the room, warm and genuine. Maxwell would watch her, the corners of his mouth turning up in a soft, tender smile. Because with Jemima, life suddenly felt fuller, richer, more real. Jemima found herself smiling more these days. Really smiling. The kind of happiness that felt steady and warm, not forced or fleeting. Her friendship with Maxwell was becoming one of the brightest parts of her life. One afternoon, after Maxwell had visited her small apartment, they decided to go for a stroll through the nearby park, the golden light of late afternoon filtering through the trees. She glanced at him, curiosity bubbling up. "So," she began playfully, "have you confessed your feelings to your mystery lover yet?" Maxwell met her gaze, eyes deep and steady. "When the time is right," he said quietly. Jemima laughed softly but didn't press further. Another Sunday, after Maxwell returned from church, he called her over for a movie night. They settled in his penthouse, the city lights twinkling below. Halfway through the film, while crunching on peppered chips, Jemima turned to him. "Don't you think your lover would misunderstand if she ever visited you unannounced?" Maxwell looked up from his beanbag chair. Ice cream spoon paused near his mouth. "Truth is," he said slowly, "she'd never visit without an invitation." Jemima's brow furrowed. "Sometimes I invite her over," he continued, "and she always comes up with some silly excuse about being busy." Jemima's voice softened. "Well, what if she really is busy?" Maxwell's eyes held a quiet sadness. "She's not. She just doesn't want to be a bother." In the dim glow of the room, the weight of unspoken feelings hung between them, and Jemima realized, maybe, just maybe, there was more to Maxwell's mystery lover than she had ever imagined. Jemima's heart clenched as Maxwell spoke about his mystery lover. The one who never came, the one who made excuses. But then, almost like a shield, she pushed the thought away. No, she told herself firmly. She wouldn't be that much of an ingrate. He wouldn't have someone he secretly loved and not be worthy of it. And besides, if Maxwell did have that special someone, Jemima wasn't going to be the one to stand in between any two hearts meant to be together. She swallowed the sting of her own feelings, burying them deep, folding them away like a fragile secret. "I'm glad she has you," Jemima said softly, forcing a smile. Maxwell looked at her, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes. But he said nothing. And in that quiet moment, Jemima wondered how long she could keep her heart so carefully guarded. Maxwell paused, his eyes searching Jemima's face carefully, as if stepping into fragile territory. "Jem," he said gently, "have you thought about opening your heart to someone again? After everything? After how much you loved your late husband?" Jemima's gaze dropped to the floor, voice barely above a whisper. "If only there was someone." The words hung in the air, heavy and raw. Maxwell was silent for a moment, speechless. Then, softly, he said, "You can't be sure there isn't." He smiled faintly, reaching for the bag of chips between them and taking a crisp one, eyes flickering back to the TV. "And besides," he added, "who knows what God is cooking for you? For me? For us?" His words lingered between them, comforting and hopeful. Jemima's mind turned over them slowly, deeply. In the quiet of her heart, she whispered, "God, I'm trusting you." even if there isn't anyone out there. And somewhere in that prayer, she felt a flicker of peace she hadn't known she needed. Later that night, the soft glow of the television flickered across the room. Jemima laughed freely at a funny scene in the movie playing on the screen. Maxwell watched her, really watched her, but he wasn't laughing. He was staring, his eyes fixed on her face with an intensity that made her heart skip. After a moment, Jemima's laughter faded and she turned toward him, unease creeping into her voice. "Stop looking at me like that," she said quietly. "It's making me uncomfortable." Maxwell's hand reached out, gently taking hers, his fingers brushing softly over her skin. "If you only knew how pretty you are," he murmured, eyes still locked on hers. Jemima pulled her hand back, a nervous smile tugging at her lips. "Are you being fair to your lover?" she asked, voice low but steady. "Would you be happy seeing her so close to another man, like I am to you right now?" Maxwell's smile softened, but he released her hand gently. "Sorry," he said, voice regretful. "I didn't mean for you to misunderstand me." He apologized again, this time more deeply, then wiped his face with the back of his hand. Without another word, he stood and walked to the bathroom downstairs, shutting the door firmly behind him. The sound of the basin tap running filled the silence. Jemima sat on the couch, fingers pinching lightly at her arm, a nervous habit she couldn't quite shake. Her mind raced, caught between confusion and longing. And somewhere deep inside, the walls around her heart wavered once more. The quiet from the bathroom stretched longer than Jemima expected. She stared at the flickering TV, but her mind was miles away, tangled in thoughts she couldn't quite untangle. Maxwell's words, his stare, the way he held her hand, it all felt like a question she wasn't ready to answer. After a while, he emerged, his face softer, eyes apologetic. "I'm sorry, Jem. I never wanted to confuse you, really. I'm sorry," he said quietly. She met his gaze, the weight between them both heavy but honest. "It's okay," she whispered, though her heart still fluttered uneasily. 2 days passed in silence. Maxwell felt the weight of every unanswered message like a stone pressing down on his chest. In the quiet of his office, he typed out an apology. "Jem, I'm sorry if I made you uncomfortable or if you misunderstood me. I never meant that." He hit send, then quickly followed it with another message. "I want to make it up to you. I hope this doesn't end our friendship." But the screen stayed blank. No reply. He set his phone down, running his hands over his face repeatedly, frustration and worry knotting inside him. Night fell and Maxwell couldn't keep still. He paced his room, phone in hand, heart pounding. Finally, he dialed. When Jemima picked up, his apology spilled out without hesitation. "Jem, I'm so sorry. Please listen to me. I'm not that kind of person. I don't want this to ruin what we have." Her voice, steady and calm, answered back. "I'm not angry. Our friendship isn't over." Relief washed over him in a rush. That night, Maxwell whispered a prayer of thanks to God, gratitude filling his soul. Because sometimes, forgiveness was the bridge between two hearts. About a week later, Maxwell reached out to Jemima with a surprising request. "Can you help me decorate and prepare for a proposal party?" he asked. He explained softly, "I'm finally going to ask my lover to be mine." Jemima didn't hesitate. Despite everything, she agreed willingly, her heart quietly hoping she wasn't just helping him step further away. Maxwell invited a small circle of true friends, people who mattered, people who had seen his real self. Together, they transformed his penthouse into a warm, inviting space. Soft lights twinkled, flowers bloomed in delicate arrangements, and the scent of fresh candles filled the air. For Maxwell, it was a moment of vulnerability and courage. For Jemima, it was a bittersweet reminder of how much had changed between them, and how much still lingered unsaid. As the evening approached, the air buzzed with anticipation, and somewhere beneath the surface, hearts waited for confession, for truth, for the next step in a story still being written. The evening air was thick with anticipation, whispers rippling quietly through the small gathering. Eyes darted to the door, then to their watches, the silence growing heavy. Where is Maxwell? And his mystery lover? Suddenly, the lights flickered and went out, leaving only the soft, golden glow of candles. Scattered across the floor, shadows danced gently along the walls as the room held its breath. From the darkness emerged Maxwell, carrying a delicate bouquet of flowers in one hand and a velvet box in the other. But instead of turning toward the expected guest, he took slow, steady steps toward Jemima. The crowd erupted into warm applause and surprised cheers. Jemima couldn't believe her eyes. He knelt before her, eyes shining with an honest, unwavering love. "Jem," he began with that signature soft smile, voice low but filled with emotion. "You have been my mystery lover all along." He told her how countless prayers for guidance had led him to realize it was her laughter, her kindness, her soul, that filled his heart. "I held back because I wasn't sure if you'd let me in. From the very moment you walked in through that door, I felt it more than I can say in words. I just knew it that you're my better half," he confessed, voice trembling just a little. Tears welled in Jemima's eyes, blurring the candlelight as she listened. "I've been opportune to see a more beautiful you, someone caring, honest, loyal, and loves deeply. I've seen how much you've carried your late husband at heart, and I admire every bit of it. So now I want it always. I want you ever by my side as we scale through life together. Jem, will you be not just my girlfriend," he asked softly, "but my lover, my best friend, and one day, my bride, even the mother to my future kids?" Joy burst forth from the room like a gentle wave. Cheers, clapping, heartfelt smiles. Overwhelmed, Jemima dropped to her knees, wrapping her arms tightly around him. "Yes, Max, I want to live every moment in your arms, staying by me when the world attacks me, loving you with all the love I have. Thank you for choosing me, Max," she whispered through her tears. He cradled her face gently, wiping away a tear, and whispered back, "Thank you for opening your heart to me. You don't even know how much it means to me, how big of my prayer just got answered. I love you, Jem, and I always want to. I love you too, Max. Thank you for praying about me, about us." Then she hugged him again warmly. In that miraculous moment, surrounded by love, light, and hopeful hearts, two souls found the home they had long been searching for. More than just physical appearance, a beautiful heart matters most. Oh, how I love happy endings. You do too, right? And so just, Maxwell and Jemima's love story only just bloomed, because God is cooking something even tastier. So if you loved every part of the story, show us you care, subscribe our channel. Let's bring you more epic heart-fluttering stories of love. See you again.